One of the reasons that I'm hopeful for you is because with my decades of experiencing intense pain and now having 7 surgeries on my left knee, I've found that there is a way to transform that journey of pain into a journey of resilience. So many people that I talk to, so many people who come to me who are hurting, well, they often say, "How do I get through this? I've never been in so much pain before." For me, it's knee pain, 7 surgeries on my left knee, and I deal with daily pain that's now basically in a state of trauma. And the good news that I have for them and I have for you is that there is a way to not only go through it, but to actually grow through it, grow stronger. And it's called Plan to Be Your Best as You Navigate Pain. The book is in progress, and today you're with me now on Plan to Be Your Best Live. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. One of the things that I'm going to do in the course of sharing with you details about the method behind Plan to Be Your Best is to make this point. Do you ever wish there was one small change that you might make that could make all the difference in the world? It is possible step by step with the Plan to Be Your Best approach. For example, after my seventh knee surgery in 2019, I was going through physical therapy, and it was clear that while there's some pain sensations that have stopped because of the surgery, there were new sensations of pain that I never felt before, and also new challenges in terms of being able to move. And working with a physical therapist, this is actually in the second round of physical therapy. It was clear that the first round, several months of physical therapy, it got me to a place where there was some benefit from it. But because of the new problems, I went back to physical therapy. I couldn't do squats. One of the basic exercises that are so important for those of us with knee issues or leg issues of any kind, hips, ankles, and so forth. Keeping our quads and our hips and our glutes strong is absolutely essential, especially for the stability of the knee. But with the physical therapist was working with me, go ahead and do squats. But every time I did it, it caused a lot of pain. So we were trying to figure out what else could we do to strengthen my quads, increase the flexibility of the knee, increase the flexibility and strength of my hips, and as well as my core. And there were a variety of other exercises. But then she had an idea. What if we took a weight, as in a free weight, about 2 inches thick, put it underneath my heels, and try doing squats that way. So the balls of my feet are on the floor, my heel is elevated on top of the plate, both feet that way. She said, "Give that a try." And all of a sudden, with that slight change, I was able to do squats. Still today, I'm able to do squats that way. And it helps in keeping my quads in a fairly decent state, good enough strength, I'll say, much better than if the quads or any muscles atrophy. The pain is more raw. I realized that going through surgeries 4, 5, and 6 when my left leg had atrophied completely before going into the sixth surgery, the total knee replacement. But that's what we find, a small change in within using the steps in Plan to Be Your Best. These are steps that are actually identified in our working together. When I walk with you through this, and I walk with you caring for you, I'm a trained caregiver as well as the developer of the Plan to Be Your Best approach. There, we take small steps together and encourage each other together as we go through these steps. And I'll share with you some facets about what Plan to Be Your Best actually is made up of and how there are a series of small changes that we look to make that ends up increasing the strength of your own unique resilience. I've found that my own resilience is certainly works for me. It is always a work in progress. To whatever extent you're here today, and share with me if you would, go ahead and add where are you? I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts area. I'm live right now on YouTube and Facebook. If you're seeing the recording of this, I'd still love to know who you are and more about you. The more you ask me questions, the more I'm actually encouraged because it gives me the chance to encourage you and care for you and give you answers that I have based on decades of being resilient, and especially with what I've been doing the since 2019 with daily pain. One of the things that we do is think about this question: what does it really mean to be your best? And I'm going to give you an answer. I'll first introduce you to the three steps of resilience. Perhaps you've taken a look at these. Maybe you've seen some of my other videos about that. We actually start with three basic steps, steps that actually can do wonders to create a pivot. Uh, Even an idea such as putting a weight underneath my heels so that I could do squats and continue strengthening my legs. Or look for ways to actually strengthen what are those strengths that you already have, which we want to maximize, but further build and grow. The nice thing about the plan to be your best approach is that it does both inspire growth that you actually experience. You find your own unique approach to being resilient. And in the course of it, you find that your best is greater than the pain. We look for ways to actually identify what other aspects about your strengths should we hone in on more and look to strengthen. And the beauty about the plan to be your best approach is that not only does it provide growth, it grows with you. There are so many, and so much of this is really a matter of talking through questions and exercises that end up with, there are so many, and in the book I'll be including uh, many of them, but maybe only about a third of all the questions and exercises that are part of the program. It's through working together that we can actually delve deeper into the different sets of questions and the different exercises based on what you need and where you are in your growth to grow your own unique resilience. Those questions can be wonderfully revealing. They create wonderful conversations that give us the opportunity to sometimes see the light at the end of the tunnel, to shine a light on what we're experiencing, to to remember there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are lights in the darkest moments when the pain is overwhelming. I'm new with using a platform called Riverside. I'm going to try to use what is basically easy technology when it comes to using Zoom, but Riverside I like very much. The quality of this platform is superb. I'm going to try to share my screen with you and a few images to share with you more about what Plan to Be Your Best is made of. And in the context of each step of the way, I'll illustrate ways that how a small change can make all the difference in the world. Let me see if I can share my screen this way and share with you this particular image about the three steps of resilience. As you can see here, there are three steps: tune in, plan, and be your best. Simple enough. The magic happens within each individual step. One of the things that I experience are random blasts of acute pain in different parts of the knee. There are over 20 different pain sensations that I experience over the course of time. And what the pain does is hijack my focus in that moment, and it saps my energy and frustrates my hope. The more I have more and more shots of pain in a shorter period of time, for example, sometimes it can be a dozen or 2 dozen a day. If I get active, that means if I leave my condo and do just about anything, especially over the course of some hours or a couple of days, that can easily ramp up to be a dozen an hour. And these are overwhelming shots of pain, usually seven, eight, nine, once in a while, a blast that's a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. So, and I wonder if you experience this as well, where when there's pain, whether it's a blast of pain or constant pain, it hijacks our thinking. Our thinking is really robbed from us, and it's we're focusing on the pain. So the tune in step. is that first step of flexing our intentionality muscle. You've heard me say it before, and I'll say it so often. One of the most important lessons that I've learned, especially going through surgeries 4, 5, and 6, is that the level of pain needs to be matched by the level of intentionality. If we're going to be resilient in the face of pain, we need to take just as much of as the thinking is hijacked. It's a matter of using our thinking that wins it back. It's a matter of using some of these techniques within Plan to Be Your Best that ends up winning back our focus and sparking new positive energy to move forward. In the tune in step, we hone in on what our experience is. We validate it. We understand, get to the point of understanding what we really need in the moment, so that when we move to this next step, the plan step, now we're thinking about considering options of exactly what to do. What's the new thought that we want to choose and focus on? What's the new emotion that we want to choose and not only just focus on, but create the emotion and experience that emotion? What is the action that we might take? Or maybe it's a combination of all three: the thoughts, emotions, and actions that are going to help move us from that pain moment into a moment where we have the focus, we're sparking new energy, and we're able to move forward. So much of the pain journey has been with me, and I know with the people that I've cared for, whether they are experiencing physical pain or they're grieving or it's excessive stress that's keeping them stuck. There's the fight, and I learned that to trade that fight and trade it for flow is absolutely essential to being resilient and to thriving even with the pain. One example, sometimes just as something small, such as putting a weight underneath my heels so that I could do my squats. There was one particular thought that I realized that I had about a month before going into my sixth knee surgery, the total knee replacement. It was about 30 days before my total knee replacement. I'm there at my office in Boston at an advertising agency. And I'm saying to myself, and I caught myself immediately, it almost shocked myself to hear me think this, that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm about to have my knee replaced at the age of 40. That means I'm not going to be able to play tennis anymore. Running is out of the question. Couldn't run for about 4 or 5 years anyway. And when hearing myself say that thought, it really made me, um, it made me, it was shocked me that I actually had that thought. So I ended up in this, in effect, I tuned in. I was very much overwhelmed with the pain and what I was about to experience with losing my natural knee. Was I tuned in and heard what I was saying. So I went into the plan step and ended up thinking, what is the thought that I should replace with that, instead of this is the worst thing that's happened to me, which is echoing a victim sentiment. I thought and I chose, and it just felt so right to choose. No, this is one of the best things that I'm going to experience. So no longer is it happening to me, and I'm looking at it as a positive. It's positive because it's going to address the incredible daily pain that I was dealing with. And the bones were fracturing themselves under the stress of the condition of the knee. It had already been for 20 years arthritic. It was arthritic at the age of 20 after the third surgery. So the pain was horrendous. I'm going to get relief from that pain. This is actually going to be a gift for me, and I need to look at it as a gift. Making that change, this is the best thing that I'm going to experience completely. It was a small change, but it meant a 180-degree difference in the way that I was viewing now the surgery. And I could tell that every day leading up to the surgery, I was actually feeling confident about this and hopeful, not focusing on any negative aspect of it, but focusing on the positive aspects of this. And I know it made a positive difference in terms of going through a very tough surgery, to be sure, and tough recovery. but it did give me the benefit of a good to almost 20 years worth of comfort before I needed the seventh surgery, which was a partial revision of the total knee replacement. Instead of being in constant pain, barely being able to move, I got to a point where I was about 85 to 90% pain free and able to go for walks, ride my bicycle. I would certainly have episodes of pain on a regular basis, especially after all the work done on my knee. But it did give me the relief that I needed. So that one small change of thought and then applying it, which is basically the third step, be your best. I actually put it to work. I kept embracing that thought, owning that thought, repeating that thought. This is one of the best things I'm going to experience. By virtue of saying it's what I'm going to experience, there was more objectivity to it. I wasn't so immersed in the thought and the emotions surrounding going into this sixth surgery. That objectivity is part of what helped me move myself forward through the entire journey for the sixth surgery. That's what we do in so many different ways. It might be a thought, it might be an emotion, it might be some kind of action that we take. But we find that when we tune in, number one, first step, we tune in, identify what we're experiencing, what we need, and then plan. We choose, think of maybe a wide variety of different options of things that we can do in any particular moment to transform not just a moment, but actually even transform uh, weeks or months or years at a time. The way that we're thinking, the way that we're living. Sometimes it's a small change. And when it's something that works, it's something that we add to what I call our resilience toolkits. You've got a resilience toolkit. Maybe it needs to be identified what's in there. And part of that is what comes out in the plan to be your best approach. In my resilience toolkit, I've got over 25 different things that I think, feel, and do to navigate the daily pain that I have. And then in the step number three, we take action. We are our best and we follow through on it. We celebrate what works. If something doesn't work, there's two key aspects to this. One is to try and try and try again. The three steps of resilience is a circle to do exactly that, to identify, to recognize how, let me see what I've got going on here. Um, the I'm going to see if I can get back to being with you. Um, and pardon me, this is a new. Um, Here we go. Hello again. So to recap and then share with you what does it mean to be our best? The three steps of resilience gives us a chance to tune in, identify and validate what we're experiencing, identify what we need. Then we go into the plan step, identify what might we do now, what thoughts might we choose, what emotions might we choose, and embrace. What actions do we take? And then in the third step, be our best. We follow through and do it. And sometimes do that three-step process over and over again. Some people come to me and ask, so how do I get my mind off the pain when I'm in constant pain? And there's two ways to go about doing it with the three steps of resilience. One is to go through each of those steps, pacing yourself, not forcing it, but doing it over and over again until you find something that it does work. Or you spend more time in each of those first two steps in particular. Because sometimes, especially when I'm overwhelmed with constant pain, one of the things that I find that I need to do is validate what I'm experiencing, understanding what my need is, and caring for that need. And in some ways, it might even be fair to say that I go through I blend those three steps together. I know I need to care for the thoughts and feelings. And then I do that in a variety of ways so that it's almost as if the cycle is repeating over and over again. And I find always, sometimes there's that haunting question: when am I going to be able to get my mind off this pain, this constant pain? It always ends up kicking in. I end up getting to a point where my emotional maturity is strengthened in real time, over time, using these three steps of resilience, and something that I'll share with you in just a minute called the 8 domains of thriving, where we find new sources of strength. That it's the intention. Ow, it's the intentionality. That was one moment, but now this is another. I'm focused on you to say that it's this intentionality, this practicing of those three steps of resilience. I found numerous ways to use it, and you will find numerous ways to use it in your own unique resilience. Let me share with you now what it means to be your best. A friend of mine asked me this question a couple of years ago, and I said, well, if you do the three steps of resilience and you get to know the value and practice what the goodness that comes out of the 8 domains of thriving. And she starts shaking her head. No, 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 no. I need one simple, some nugget to define what does it really mean to be my best. Because if you go online even and type in that very question, Google it, you'll see hundreds of pages of websites that have lists of sometimes 28, 34 or more things to do, a long laundry list of, all right, do these different things, think this way, behave this way, have these perspectives. That's the definition of being your best. But especially in response to my own desire and my friends' question, what does it really mean to be your best? I've narrowed it down to something that I'm going to share with you now, and then show you how between the three steps of resilience and the 8 domains of thriving, we're able to find how your best is greater than the pain. Bear with me as I use this technology again to bring this up. So let's define, what does it mean to be your best? It's your most, let's define what it means to be your best. Your most positive strengths in action. And let me explain why each of these words matter and what's behind them. So it's obviously you. I can only be my best in my own way with my own positive strengths when they're in action. And the same with you. Your strengths, your positive strengths, are uniquely yours. And let's start with this. What do I mean by positive? That means these are exceptional strengths, as only you can do. You're so wonderfully unique with your own set of strengths, with your own set of virtues, with your own set of values, your own set of perspectives. Your strengths are uniquely yours. And what I mean by positive is that they are exceptional for you and for others. I believe our best selves, when we are at our best, what we're doing is good for us and it's good for others. It's not something that we do just for ourselves. It's not just a social, what's the word I want to use here? It's not a selfish act, but it's so good. There's so much virtue in it that it's good for others in a couple of different ways. It might be something that you model to other people, to your friends and family. And it's in the doing that they see that these are positive strengths of yours, exceptional because only you can do them as only you could. They are strengths. These are as strengths that are uniquely yours. It's what comes naturally to you. It's what you actually would even value spending time doing and working to strengthen further, to further develop. Imagine thinking of what are some of the strengths that you've got that you take pride in, that you enjoy applying, and you enjoy even nurturing them. I grew up in a family that knew how to listen, especially from my mom. I first witnessed what active listening was like with her. And I ended up always valuing and became a trained caregiver. And in effect, uh, started with 50 hours of training on how to listen. And I have valued that. I value in nurturing this particular strength as who I part of who I am and part of how I want to enjoy life, and always working on strengthening my listening skills. You'll see if I have the opportunity to work with you and walk with you through Plan to Be Your Best, you'll see that I'll model active listening in the caring and the coaching that I do. So these are strengths that are naturally yours. You enjoy them. You enjoy working on them. So your most positive strengths, the last part, in action. We can only really be our best when we are acting our best. In any given moment is when we can be our best. So it's our following through and applying these strengths, using them. And the idea of even celebrating them is something that we find in the very end of one of the 8 domains of thriving. So this is the definition: your best, your most positive strengths in action. Let's talk about, and let me see if I'm still a little rusty with this. I'm curious to know your thoughts. I'm, I'm here to answer your questions. If you're with me live on Facebook or YouTube, uh, I'll see your comments in the chat here, and I'll answer any question that you've got. Curious to know if you are in pain. Let me start with this. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain level? Or if you want to share with me, what is it that is the pain source for you? There's always a primary pain source. For me, it's the knee pain, various different kinds of pain sensations. But then there's always the secondary array of sources of pain. These are the thoughts, the emotions, the way that it's affecting my life, affecting my relationships, affecting my ability to be active. These are things that need and deserve to be cared for. These are sources of pain that need to be identified and validated. And the idea of finding those, understanding those as part of that first step of in the 3 steps of resilience. But the more we actually do that, we recognize, all right, there are multiple sources of pain. Pain can be and is, especially with this kind of pain journey, this resilience journey, it's a whole person experience. It affects every aspect of who I am and of my life. And you might be feeling and experiencing the very same thing. Please share with me, if you would, what is it that is maybe that primary source of pain, or what one word describes some of the secondary sources of pain that you're experiencing? So if we define being our best as your greatest, your most positive strengths in action, how do we approach resilience then to identify those strengths? And going back to the perhaps the theme for this conversation today, what are the small steps that we could change, or what are the small steps that we could take that can make a huge difference in the way that we're navigating pain? Let me share with you an introduction to the 8 domains of thriving. This will take just a moment for me to bring this up. I was actually asked to identify these for a corporate client, and the idea of helping them go through a very challenging time for their teams. They in their leadership, they needed to know, how do we strengthen how do we actually identify our strengths and strengthen those, as well as build new strengths, so that we can lead ourselves and our teams through challenges that we've never experienced before. In effect, that's a definition of what so many people say when they come to me, that I've never experienced so much pain before. How do I get through this? These are the 8 domains of thriving. As you can see, it's an acronym. Plan. Each letter stands for one of the first 4 of the 8 domains, and best. Plan and best make up a combination of sources for identifying strengths and ways to, in effect, with wisdom, finding ways to enhance those, finding new sources of energy, other ways that we can create energy to use in the 3 steps of resilience, to be resilient even in the face of pain. Each domain is something that we spend time in talking through a conversation, because resilience grows through conversation. And I've found, with all that I've experienced through decades of pain, and as a communications professional in my business life, as well as a caregiver, that within each of these 8 domains, there are those questions and exercises that reveal so much that we can use in further building our resilience. A couple of examples. The P stands for prepare. There's this wonderful quote by Miguel de Cervantes, the author, that to be prepared is half the victory. And in effect, what so many people are saying when they come to me and say, Rick, I'm in so much pain, I don't know how to do this. They're saying, I'm not prepared for this. And how can anyone really be prepared for a journey with pain that they've never experienced before? The good news is that I've found that in as much as we might not be prepared at first, it's never too late to become able. Part of the essence of the prepare domain is to identify something that's really foundational. 2 things, actually. It's foundational before we can even begin further going through any one of the other domains. And that is to anchor in, identify and anchor in our values and our identity. Have you ever felt as though that experience that you're having, the painful experience, is shaking your sense of self? One of the things to do is to, for example, with this combination of 3 questions, basically, spend time with this. Write out your answers, because there's this wonderful, fresh energy and value that comes from identifying some key aspects about yourself. Part of your identity is, what about you is true? Secondly, what about you is good? And third, what about you is unchangeable? It's important. I found it's been essential to identify those things that this pain in all these years is not going to change. What about you is good? What about you is true? And what about you is unchangeable? Another way to think of it is, what is your way? What is your truth? And how are you in relationships with this world, with others? How are you bringing life and light to the world, to your loved ones, to your friends? Those, when we recognize them, help us anchor in who we are. And that's just like pain can take away our focus and our energy. Pain can take away our sense of self. So in effect, we're using some of these exercises to, all right, flex that intentionality muscle and focus on those qualities. Another aspect of this, let me jump down to the N. The N stands for now. The now domain of thriving is about being in the moment. This actually helps support that second step in the 3 steps of resilience, prepare. It's only in the moment we might actually prepare anything, but we can prepare for something in the future in this now moment. How do we actually, when we're dealing with pain, be still enough to be in the now, in the moment, to be able to effectively plan? Let me share with you, if I may. I know what it's like to go see doctors, as I have recently, as well as after the seventh knee surgery, and be told, I'm sorry, I wish there was something I could do to help. How upsetting that can be when you're so desperate, when I am so desperate for relief. To hear that is there. This is actually an example of how intentional I'll be. I was about to say a word that I don't want to use, defeating. I'm so intentional about my words, I won't say that, although I'm sharing with you this as an example, because in a moment, just a flash of a moment where I was about to say that, I am so reinforcing positivity and practicing being that person of resilience that I won't say a word like that. I won't use words that label the kind of pain that I experience. I don't want to use words to illustrate the negativity about the pain. There are sometimes I will say there are no words for the pain, but I've got plenty to describe my resilience. But so in the now moment, in effect, you just saw an example of the way I practice being resilient in this now moment when even with my choice of words matter. They reflect our perspective, and perspective, as we all know, is everything. In fact, there's one of these domains in which we look at the question of what are our perspectives? What is your perspective about the pain that you're experiencing? And then, and that actually what we do, and we almost always see this, whether it's a group of 10 or 25 or even 500, when we go through this exercise and we talk about really define what our perspective is about this particular challenge that we have with the pain. We identify it, we recognize it, it makes sense. Perspectives usually make sense, but then there's always this follow-up question, which is very revealing. What should your perspective be? And almost uniformly, it's almost universal. Everyone looks at the perspective that they identified and then realize, you know what, there's maybe a small change to make in that perspective that can make a world of difference. Each of these different domains creates a building effect, and the more energy comes from it, more two things actually. And there's one particular domain that focuses on, I'll mention it, it's the encourage. Encouragement is something that we all need more of through the course of navigating anything difficult, whether it's physical pain, grieving, or even stress, whatever it might be. When we go through these 8 domains and spend some time in the encourage one, we find two things are emerging. One, on one hand, there's wisdom. We are growing our intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our wisdom about what we're experiencing, wisdom about ways to approach it with small changes. And we're also gaining courage. I'm sorry, there's the wisdom that we're gaining by going through these domains, insights, new tools to use, new perspectives. And then there's conviction. There's a growing sense of that, that use of that intentionality that is strengthening something that, all right, I am committed to this. I feel strongly about it. And then we find that in that encourage domain, the combination of those two, wisdom and conviction, are key sources of strength for navigating the most challenging times. You'd find, as I have, that when the conviction might be waning, pain is exhausting. Conviction can become weaker, but the strength in the wisdom can lift up what we need for being resilient. Likewise, if wisdom seems to be waning, it's that deep sense of conviction that can make up for it. It's the combination of these two, conviction and wisdom, which is what courage is. I hope you'll find that when we meet and talk, that how quickly you'll see this at work and how quickly you'll see that your best is greater than the pain. Speaking of connecting, if we're connecting for the first time here through this video, I want you to know that there are a few resources available to you. One is free with the use of my name, Rick Cram, all uppercase, where you can use Cadre, which is a wonderful platform designed for mental health as well as a very real sense of community. I'm a contributor there. You can use that code, Rick Cram, and the use Cadre for free through August 15th of this summer of 2025. Let me go take this offline and rejoin you face to face. But that gives you a sense of the 8 domains of thriving. As you see, there are 8 of them. Each one of them is like a well of life-giving water for your resilience. And the more time you spend in it, it's as if you're digging, and we would be digging that well deeper. So it's an ever growing source of refreshing energy and wisdom for your resilience, your own unique resilience. Getting back to Cadre, CADRE. It's a wonderful platform, a wonderful community of contributors like myself and others who are there to, who want to pursue their own well being, mentally, emotionally. And you can use Rick Cram, all uppercase, as a code. Download the app and then use Rick Cram, all uppercase, and enjoy Cadre for free through August 15th of this summer of 2025. Also, right ongoing now is the Summer of Resilience. The summer of 2025 is the Summer of Resilience. And there are a number of different ways that you can take a look at the options. If you go to rickcram.com, you'll see right there on the homepage an invitation to drill into the blog post for this and see all the details of how it offers. What's still available is a Sunday evening small group experience, virtual, 10 weeks to go through the whole plan to be your best approach and gain from that, as well as gain from being in a small group community where you're there to receive encouragement as well as even give your own wonderful encouragement to others. That's how we thrive through something like this. And then you can also see options for creating your own group. If you have a certain group, whatever size it might be, whether it's 3 people or 7 or 8 people, and we can talk about creating your own, whether it's a 10-week program or some other schedule, and pace it in a way that works for you. We can talk about that. I invite you to even take a look at the one-on-one coaching that I can provide you and really walk with you, just the 2 of us, through this and help you discover and build your own unique resilience through the Plan to Be Your Best method. So between the small groups, a group of your own, or working one-on-one, the way we would start is simply have a free conversation. No obligation, no pressure. Let me just talk with you and think through what you need, and I'll guide you, even if Plan to Be Your Best isn't really a match for you at this time. But the free call is, let's call it a resilience planning call, or you and I can compare notes. I'll share with you more about the Plan to Be Your Best approach and see if it's something that might be a good fit for you at this particular time. So, in effect, there we have it. The 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 2 key components. Let me just say this again. When we take a look at the 3 steps of resilience, we see there are 3 seemingly, basically, 3 simple steps to being able to transform a moment. With the 3 steps of resilience, we see a way to transform a moment that can be quickly done. Then we actually integrate those 3 steps across the 8 domains of thriving. We actually tune in to each domain. We do some planning in each domain, and we take some action steps because of the goodness that we get out of each of the domains. Whether it's like the prepare domain, where we re-anchor in our sense of self, or in the now domain, where we think through, how do we make the most of any now moment for planning of what we need now, even planning of what we need in the days and weeks ahead, or the encourage strategy, where there's an abundance of encouragement and a discovery of what it looks like to combine both a combination of your conviction and your wisdom together, how they define how how courageous you are. Let me just do a time check and to see if there's any particular questions that I'll address right now. I thank you for being with me all this time. I really appreciate it. This has been Plan to Be Your Best Live. I'm Rick Cram, your resilience coach. I'm here to actually encourage you and walk you through what it means to identify your own unique way of being resilient, your own unique way to thrive even through the pain. Contact me at any time through my website, scheduling a time for a resilient planning meeting, a planning call where we'll just simply talk for 20 or 30 minutes and see how I can help you. As I'm here for you, my purpose is to equip and encourage people to plan to be your best as you navigate pain. There are over 20 million people, there are over 50 million people in the US living with chronic pain. And if you're one of them, I just want you to know I'm here for you and to remind you often that your best is greater than the pain. Bye for now.